We are focused as an organization on what we call wisdom-enabled AI. So it's basically taking your tribal knowledge, all your background, all your experience, and making it applicable to the given scenario.
Welcome to SaaS That App, building B2B web applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I'm your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SaaS That App. I am your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks, and with me, as always, across the microphone and screen and many states is my partner in crime, Justin Edwards, CIO of Delta Systems. Welcome, as always, Justin.
Howdy.
Our guest today is Michael Zalle, founder and CEO of YellowBird, which is an AI-powered SaaS platform that is currently transforming how businesses and insurance providers manage workplace safety and risk. My understanding is that under Michael's leadership, YellowBird has grown into an Inc. 5000 company that does help organizations of a lot of different verticals and varieties to connect with EHS professionals in a very short amount of time. He's had a lot of success with this, not exactly where he got started, but where he is currently. And like a lot of business-to-business SaaS stories, YellowBird didn't necessarily start with the perfect tech stack, but it started with a great idea and has built from there. So obviously, like many, early days come with hard lessons, and we always want to give a lean toward how things can be scalable even at early stages. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking with Michael today about driving that MVP all the way to the scalable success that it has right now. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of jump right in. I know you've got a lot of history in the world of tech, and it didn't start with YellowBird. So tell us a little bit about how it is that you did get started in tech and what eventually led you to YellowBird.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. I started in technology in a very unusual way. I was in high school, and my very first job I don't want to tell you the year that it was, but it was a long, long time ago. My very first job was actually at a movie theater, and this gentleman offered me a position to sell computers because I had a gift of gab, and I maybe looked a little older than I was. I was only 16, 15 years old. And of course, I convinced him that I knew everything that there was to know about computers. I knew nothing. And it started me on the journey where I was selling computers in high school. And by and you could probably do the math, by 1993, I was graduating, and I ended up getting into the first foundations of the internet. And right place, right time, and really very blessed to frankly be in Southern California at that time and have the opportunity to start my career.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a familiar story, actually, that mirrors a lot of my growth path as well. And not to give my age away, but similar years. So totally understand that. So turning us over to YellowBird a little bit, just for our listening audience who may not be familiar with your services or what it is that YellowBird does, kind of give us the nutshell version of YellowBird.
Absolutely. So the nutshell version is that we have become something that is still aligned with where we started. And we started as basically a safety marketplace focused on health and safety experts, with the intent of kind of using that gig economy type of a model where you have subject matter expertise in different places than you have needs, and you're always trying to chase people around. And I said, I don't like the idea of the commoditized driver or the commoditized meal delivery person. I think it takes the human skills and talents out. But what I do love about about the Uber-esque or Match.com or all of these marketplace models was the ability to use tech to match better. And so that was the original thesis. And we went into first revenue in January of 2020, just in time for a global pandemic. Yeah.
I think we probably get into it.
Timing, yes. I say it's actually kind of a blessing, to be honest, because we hadn't started to scale yet. I was fortunate I had sold a business and I had the ability to keep us going and figure it out. A couple years later, it could have been devastating. So that being said, we figured it out and we decided to scale more rapidly than we anticipated purely because we didn't know what we were going to do. And health and safety and COVID kind of go hand in hand. And
Sure.
that was the beginning of our journey in early 2000.
You're fantastic. So talk to me a little bit more about the specific problems, the specific things that you were seeking to solve with this. I mean, you've mentioned a little bit about it already and kind of a little bit about the goal, but yeah, you see a need. What's the need and what's the problem that you were seeking to solve at the outset?
And it's still the same problem that we're seeking to solve. We're just doing it in a better way. The problem is as you run an operation in today's world, whether it be in construction or manufacturing or in trucking, you tend to have different compliance requirements. You tend to have different risk. You'll be informed that if you open an office in California, you have to abide by a whole bunch of laws and regulations that you don't have to abide by in, say, Texas or in Missouri. And so the different understanding of all these various things, there's usually one or two people responsible for all of it. And so what I found early in my career is once you trust somebody that they're smart enough to figure it out, they become your person and you have one or two resources and you fly them all over the country and you try to get them, they become your guy or gal. The problem is that there's no possible way with the 150,000 regulations that we deal with, that person is going to be the right person, nor can they scale at a level where you need that person to be duplicated. And so what we were solving initially, and we're still solving, is right person with the right skills. And how do you know that they're going to be successful? And that is where right place, right time with technology, we've really kind of backed into it. But it just started with, hey, if you have these skills, register on our platform. And if we have a job for you, we'll tell you about it and you can make a few extra bucks. And that was the original concept, was that.
No, that's terrific. Yeah, many of these that are so successful, of course, have very specific problems that they're trying to solve. They see it. You work in the industry, you work in the vertical, and you can identify those problems pretty quickly. But not necessarily everybody starts putting together and connecting the dots of how can we eliminate some of these steps, or how can we make some of these problems go away. And I noted here that part of, and it may be a little cart before the horse, but in your current iteration of the system, you are leveraging some AI components. And so I'm kind of curious, and we'll back into, early days as well, but I'm just kind of curious at this particular point, have you found that AI component, which is super interesting, to help the problem, hinder the problem? Is it just making what the problem used to be more automated? Tell me a little bit about the AI aspect of the platform.
I speak on this a fair amount, and I actually just got back from an event in Miami. See, folks in today's world, because AI is just so many buzzwords. Oh, yeah, I'm using AI. They don't really dissect it. Now, I'm very fortunate that I have a team of people here, ex-Googlers and people who definitely understand how today it's being utilized. Backing up, it all starts with data. And what data do you have access to? And then how is it structured or unstructured? And then how do you use it to help execute the problem-solving process? In the case that we're talking about initially, it's, we talked about an example. It's a use case of, I own a warehouse and distribution center, and I have a bunch of forklift drivers that are buzzing around all day long, and they're loading trucks and they're unloading trucks, and there's, in that scenario, you've got relatively unskilled labor, large volume of compliance risk, and multiple languages, multiple shifts, and a workforce that's got 300% turnover because these are not exactly career-long jobs necessarily. And you're required for OSHA, as an example, to train everybody who touches a forklift on the machine once a year. And that would be great if everybody stayed where they were and it had all the same machines and you could just do that. But now multiply that by 3 shifts and turnover, it gets very complex. So how AI in that utilization in that scenario would be used is our local professionals, and we'll just use an arbitrary location of, say, Dallas. In Dallas, our platform would scrape the entire platform of YellowBird professionals that were background checked, insured, certified, that have forklift training in their resumes. But then we look, and this is where the AI has gotten so powerful. We've been very, very fortunate. And look, it's a happy little accident, as Bob Ross says. It literally, I fell into this. It was not because we were so brilliant to come up with the idea, but technology caught up to us. And the reality is that if somebody happened to in high school be one of those forklift drivers and in Dallas at that company, which happens, by the way, and then they went away to school and then they became a safety engineer for some big company, and then they retired, and they are on my platform as a retired YellowBird, as a retired professional, that person and that company in that geography would be better suited to go do the training program for that group because of all these correlated data points that may not be obvious to the blind eye. And so how we're using it for matching, simply said, is we use all these data points and we use basically connective tissue. The second way we use it is based on the feedback loop. We have all this feedback loop. So when did they arrive? Did they arrive on time? Did everybody pass the test? Was there negative or positive feedback? Just like you do on an Uber. A lot of our stuff actually has deliverables of reports. So I'm doing an OSHA inspection. I'm doing a hazardous materials assessment. We can take the insights from those reports and use them as a tool, which we're doing right now on the platform, to help our professionals be more successful when they go out to do the job. So those are two very unique AI applications, but they're natural because you have the data available that is structured from the government. We can pull in the regulation. We can pull in the policy. We know that that's controlled. And then you have the nuanced data, the professionals' information, I wouldn't use that piece of equipment here because of the moisture in the air. That kind of a comment can go into AI to help us when somebody's in a moist environment using that piece of equipment, say, please validate that that piece of equipment is good for the moisture levels, things like that.
So I absolutely love that because it is using AI to solve a problem instead of AI as a solution in search of a problem. And I think in the current climate, we see a lot of, we have to do AI, we have to use a solution, and we just need to find a problem that it will be good at, which as an entrepreneur, as a technologist, is kind of backwards in my mind. So it's brilliant that you were doing that so early on, and that things kind of caught up to you, so to speak. I love that insight.
Well, thank you. We started, frankly, from a world where you had individuals sitting and looking at resumes, and then you got to a world where you could do keyword searches on the few keywords that you're looking for. Now we'll take hundreds of thousands of data points to find the needle in the haystack. And now the needle within the needle of the haystack because of these models. And that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, this is not just this age of AI is not just for your given use case today, but the next use case that's being developed as you're using your use case today, which is so much fun for me. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm sorry to opine on this, but we talk about kind of like we're running out of the internet to scan and how much better can these LLMs get. But if you think about the fact that all these LLMs that we're using are generating content, which can be self-consumed by them and other LLMs, it's kind of, did we consume the data that was out there, or did we just hit the inflection point where we're creating so much content so quickly? It's kind of an open question for an AI researcher, right?
Well, I love the question. And that's part of the reason that we, how we raise money and how we are growing so quickly. The niche aspects of outlying data is what makes it so interesting. If you are looking for LLM, large language modeling, it's going to literally take in as much human data and as much data as it can. Multimodal. So you're going to have video, and you're going to have audio, and you're going to have written word, and you're going to have snippets. You're going to have all these things that are being processed. But it's going to essentially water it down to core themes. And what we're doing is we're looking for the outlying data. We're saying, yes, we know what the rules and regs are, but there's some human wisdom in here that our pros are providing that are giving you the outlying data. Like, yes, that's true, but you're in a moist environment. Yes, it's true, and that philosophically is true, but if you really want to save somebody from having a slip, trip, and fall scenario, just making sure you block off the only door into the facility probably isn't a practical example. So yes, you should block that off, but maybe you have a cleanup plan so that you don't have to just shut it down for the next day because you have to generate revenue. So it's things like that that are practical and wisdom based that I think is just so powerful.
Yeah, it's a bit of experiential learning. I mean, you're hiring professionals, and it's not just that you want the person that happens to match the criteria. You want the person that actually has industry specific knowledge. That, the guy that's like, you know what, if you turn the wheel too far to the left, what's going to actually happen is it's going to, hang up your chassis or whatever. Who's going to know that but an operator of that device? And so,
Exactly.
yeah, those are fantastic points.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously the kind of natural progression as it relates to hiring things. We filter through resumes. Okay, now cool. We can feed resumes into things and put some sorting and apply some filtering to it, and we get a few more and so on and so forth. But obviously, your application would have to have gone through a very similar kind of a growth path. You obviously didn't start with AI is where we're going necessarily. So I want to turn the clock way back and get into the early days with YellowBird and back into like the MVP, the first round and kind of what went into deciding how you want to approach this in terms of platform, in terms of technology, in terms of code base. You now have the problem you want to solve. So how did you apply which tech to start to handle that problem?
Well, I'm going to start with a commercial for Delta Systems because I'll tell you, I really wish I would have hired you guys because we went the wrong way really early. But I really mean that because, like at the earliest stage, when you are just trying to validate what you're doing, the biggest challenge that anybody has is how do we not put money into things that we don't know we need? And so MVP, minimum viable product, is truly that. It's like I'm going to give you a little behind the curtain. We used Google Forms that went to emails. We used, didn't even go to Google Sheets. It just went to emails. And then eventually it went into a free database that we used for far too long. And we kludged it together. And the original MVP to just see if this was going to work was we talked to 50 professionals and they sent us their resumes. And we talked to 5 companies that said they'd be willing to try us. Not even willing to necessarily even hire, but just try it. And so that was our first iteration of, okay, well, we've got some pros and we have some companies and can we match them together? And it was done not even as good as a staffing company. We were worse than a staffing company at that point. Because at least they're in the business of having the systems in place to do it. We didn't even know what the heck we were doing. But it was never to be a staffing company. It was always to be a platform that could do it. And as we started getting some success, we started realizing that we were spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets. And we had like 5 databases. And we had a CRM over here that wasn't talking to the main resume database over here that was not talking to, we had 2 separate systems for our professionals and our organizations that weren't even in the same database or even in the same system. So it was not going to swear an S show. It definitely was a bit of a shit show. I'll just swear. You can cut it out if you want. But it was a mess, and it took us. We grew on that, which is the hardest part. If we weren't successful, it would have been easy to switch. But now you're like growing in your system that's not a good system, but you can't just can it and start. You can't just abandon it if you don't have any customers. It's easy to replace, except you don't have a business. But as you have all this stuff, and it literally took us about 3.5 years into revenue before today we've got, we have a beautiful platform. It is designed for this purpose, but we've had to go through 3 heavy iterations thinking we were fixing it. And we weren't actually, we were throwing Band-Aids on a bullet hole. And it just, at some point, we literally had to rebuild ground up everything.
Sure. Yeah. It just builds up that base. So I'm super interested in step two. So we know where you're at right now. Like I said, you've gone through, at some point in its history, a big rebuild. At what point, or how did you make that step, and what did you make that step into?
So the quick answer is as quick as I can make it is I don't know enough to be able to make any of these decisions. And so I made the wrong decisions multiple times. I think in today's environment, that interim step, it's really difficult for a CEO and for a founder to be raising money with confidence, showing that you know what you're doing, showing that you've found product market fit, showing all this stuff. And you're trying to get investors and customers and employees confident that you know what you're doing. And then you are talking to internal folks and saying, we have the wrong system. And and you're supposed to be at least smart enough to be able to know, well, why did you choose the wrong system? And the reality is that everybody you ask will give you a different answer. And that's the hardest possible thing. Is we actually iterated twice because I hired either the right person at the wrong stage of our business, which happens a lot. They weren't the wrong person. They were the wrong person at the stage where we were. Or there are situations where we hired the wrong person, or where we didn't have the capital available to hire the right person. But at the end of the day, if you don't have people around you who truly can articulate what the interim step and the next step look like, and is this a linear process, or am I just solving for the B step and then I got to get rid of all that again and start from new to get to the C step? Probably a problem too. But the quick answer is, that was not quick, is there is really no secret to it. You just have to be humble enough to have intellectual curiosity and today you can use really great systems. Like, the good thing with LLMs is volume data and processing it is a really good thing. Like, you can say into any of these, Gemini or GPT or any of these others, or you can say, for a company that is this size, that is doing this type of thing, what general technology stack should I look at? And it will give you a list. At least it points you in a general direction, instead of, hey, yeah, my brother's an IT guy. And it's like, I'm like, whoa, I don't even know where to go with that.
Zooming in on that for non-technical founders or people who find themselves in that situation, like using an LLM, a ChatGPT, to put you into the interview with your technologist with good questions. And I think putting you both in helping you select the right person, but also in helping you direct that person and helping you make that person understand. I think that having an LLM and having these resources available to you now could actually make you a better person to manage a tech team or to manage a technology project, even if you're non-technical, because it can help you understand what the concerns are, what the questions are, and run that by people. I wonder if that had been more prevalent back when, how your trajectory might have looked different.
Maybe. There's no crystal ball, and there's also no ability to go back and see how it would have played out, because there is no undo button. But the reality is that, I'll give you a perfect example. We were doing all the right things, in my opinion. At the time, it was very much my opinion, on marketing. And we were working with some very, very good marketing consultants and marketing agencies. And one of those particular agencies did a great job at generating traffic to a platform that really wasn't meeting the product market fit needs at that given point in time. And so you could say, oh, well, we tried that digital marketing strategy, or the reality is there's so many things that are interconnected in the world that we live in. And a lot of it just is what needs to be right in order for this to happen successfully. And sometimes you can't even know that you're going to be in a good position to convert until you spend the money on the platform first, which is not easy because nobody wants to spend money on the wrong things. But all the money in the world for the wrong platform or the wrong solution, it's not going to It's not going to mean a darn thing landing 1 million people on a website that crashes or doesn't have the right call to action or is listing on, a retail type of a community and you are doing a, data science type of solutions. Like, well, that's not good. All the traffic doesn't matter. So I guess the quick answer is that being smart enough and around smart enough people to ask, what am I trying to accomplish today? And the answer is not, I need better tech. The answer is, I need a platform that will help me convert and solve the need of my customer efficiently. And just saying, well, I need a platform that does the tech. Well, that's not gonna do it. And that took me a long time, by the way. I'm giving you little snippets right now that I wish somebody would have told me, because that is a hard thing to acknowledge, especially when you don't know what your goal actually is. I got 50 number one objectives.
No, you said a lot when you said that.
Yeah.
As someone who does technology basically exclusively, I always come back to with my customers, it's like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Like, if the technology was awesome, how would you know? And there's not an answer to that question. It's like, well, I don't really want to get started on building something because it's expensive and we don't have a goal. And if you don't know where you're going, you might not get there, is the problem. So no, I love the insight. I think that you're spot on.
Stack ranking, the best advice I can give to a young group that's trying to decide, because, all right, and I'll give you a perfect example. Early on, we had needs for sending out invitations that were customized to the professional that gave all the information that they needed to make a decision. We also needed the ability to match that customer with the job, but to execute that job, we needed to be able to do scheduling and we needed to be able to do on-platform communication. So making sure that we're the center of the communication workflow rather than email direct or text direct, people being able to disintermediate, having no value of the platform. But we also needed to be able to represent our professionals for their profiles in a way that made them proud of who they are and that we understood that what they could do. We didn't have any of those. And then you say, well, okay, which one do you start on? That's the hardest thing that you can do as a startup, of saying, I need it all. And how do you, and I'd say the hardest thing that we all do is deciding, okay, stack rank these and don't change your mind. Which first thing is first? And even if you think you want to change your mind, don't solve it. It was your first thing. Get it solved completely and go to the next. Because I started probably 50 projects simultaneously and none of them were executed well. Live and learn. And with no money, which doesn't help. You could 50 if you have enough zeros.
Yeah, the no money just ratchets up the pain. So
Yeah.
That's why that was 50 not done well. It would have been 50 done well over a long duration of time. I had money.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ever-shifting priorities too. That's something that we talk to our team about, and as we're talking to clients and things like that. It's grand if you have 10 priorities, but as you said, they can't all be number one, and also whatever order you do land on can't change week to week. You'll never get any one of them all the way done, or you'll get a bunch of partials, like you mentioned. And so, making sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction, I guess, is the moral there.
Or being willing to have, we call them fires burn. The things that we know are important, but they're just not as important as the other things. A good example, and we still are just solved for this, which is the accounting process. Look, when you're not doing massive, like hundreds of thousands of transactions a week, you can run traditional accounting, still have it through the platform, but have a traditional accounting do that final step of sending out invoices and things to that effect. You can't do that on a spreadsheet. There is no manual way of doing that anymore. We have to have a platform that does that. And so if you have to decide, not do I want to, but can I do the invoicing? I can. Can I do the matching and facilitation off platform? No way. There's zero chance. You can't do it. And have a good user experience. I guess the answer is yes. And your customers will leave you I guess you could, but you're not gonna be good at your job.
So taking all this, big umbrella, we're looking at it all now, MVP, you go through these different processes, you did ultimately arrive at, hey, a rebuild is what we've got to do. How do you feel about the platform now, in terms of stability, scalability, because obviously, and knowing what I know of you, you're always looking ahead, you know, do you feel like you're positioned with where you are right now to be able to make that next step or that next leap, or is there going to be, some other hurdle that may necessitate big changes, to the architecture that you're currently on?
Well, I will tell you that a younger man than myself would say, I have it all together. There will be problems and there will be big architecture changes, and I don't know what they are and I don't know when they're coming.
Good answer.
But for right now, for where we are in a good position. So we look at it in three primary buckets. We look at it as, do we have the on-roads into the platform built so that professionals or customers or even data sources can interact with the platform in an efficient way, even the ones that we don't know? So APIs, uploading of documentation, multimodal access, all that kind of stuff. So yes, we're in good shape there. We've designed for that. So it's a little bit of I don't know what I don't know, but at least it's structured that it can handle with modest engineering that. The second piece of the equation is, are we building our models in an environment that we not only control and we not only are leveraging the IP and the value that we're creating and the benefit to the customers, but is it on a platform that is going to have longevity? When you're building these things, sometimes the concern is, we had this early on. We built a whole platform on Ruby on Rails. And if anybody knows Ruby on Rails, you'll know that it has its inherent challenges and it has its benefits, huge benefits at a size and in an application. I love Ruby, but it's just not designed to be your core. And in many circumstances, I should say that. In our circumstance, wasn't built to do the core. But I'll tell you, there are a lot of circumstances that it just wasn't right for me. So we have our core processing of language modeling and all that kind of stuff, and databases and infrastructure and, AWS and G Suite and cloud and all these things. Yeah, we're good there. The big one for us is our app-based process. We're now processing the user app for the phone and the tablet, and that we can empower people that are not in our core value proposition. As an example, right now we're building tools that will enhance the value to our professional. So when they're on site and they take a picture with the app, they will be able to see in real time or relative real time the applicable regulations and insights. It's hugely valuable. But there will be the things that the end customer might want to be able to do that with when they're not hiring YellowBird. And it's not to replace a YellowBird Pro. It's actually maybe we need to do a snapshot of our progress once a month at every location. You're not going to send a YellowBird Pro out to your 600 locations once a month to do a snapshot of your progress. That's the kind of thing that we're developing right now with our app that would say you can go to every location, walk through, it will give you a guided tour, and then we'll set a benchmark for you. And that application of AI and that application of tech is the third bucket that is still a big question mark for me, because I don't know what I don't know yet. So right now I feel comfortable. I feel like we know what we want it to look like right now, but we haven't really deployed it at a level where I say that it's actually working. I think conceptually it will.
I just was kind of curious because it's not a fork in the road, but it's a decision that often has to get made, and sometimes very early, as to, whether or not we want to go the native route of, for whatever reason, a client says it absolutely has to be iOS native. It's got to be in the Apple Store and, Android to the side. Or do you take something that's like yours, more responsive, so it hits a larger a larger percentage of technology, it's quite a bit more agnostic? Or do you do both because you're trying to target certain features or certain things to those platforms?
We've built the platform with the intention of being interactive with mobile apps. But that means that the mobile apps are interacting with us, not us with the mobile app. And so we will build a native iOS app. We will build a native Android app. But the development is an interface back to our core. It's not making the app process. Now, I will tell you, we do have the app that processes a fair amount, because one of the issues that we came across, and this is something we're solving for, and it's one of our secret sauces, which I love, is it's amazing how many locations when you're in a warehouse or on a site don't have internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many apps have to be connected to the internet in order to function. And so you have to have it have the ability to actually work in its own and then sync. It still needs to think when it gets back online, but you'd be shocked. I mean, how far we got before we realized, no, actually, there's a large number of our customer locations in major metropolitan markets that happen to have steel walls around them, and they don't have good internet coverage or whatever it is. I mean, again, you're working warehouses or construction sites or bridge building or, petroleum labs. It's just,
Right.
yeah, they don't design for Wi-Fi.
No.
And technologically, that offline sync is a hard problem. And it's one that's really, especially if you're not already using a mobile app, you thought you were going to get away with just having a responsive website the whole time. That goes out the door immediately. You have to have the mobile app. And then on top of that, you now have to bite off these really nasty problems like caching, especially if you have multiple people who are working in the same place at the same time. It's like, well, which one of these is the right? Yeah.
Who wins?
Yeah. So that's a challenging problem to solve. So it's cool your app is doing that.
It's less challenging if you aren't already too deep into the other path. Like, if you know this, if you start down this path, if we actually learn from some of our customers, so a lot of our customers use us, they're software companies, and they use us to do the surveys. So we'll send out YellowBird professionals all over the country using our customers or our partners' software. But every now and then you'll get software that isn't designed to work offline, and they're getting mad at the pro or our YellowBird Pro. They're like, "Hey, it's not coming up." And it's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it, and it says no service." I'm like, I don't know what you want our professionals to do about that, but I don't know how to solve for that, because it's actually technically the software is not like. So do you want us to do it on paper? We can do it on paper. It's been done on paper for the last 50 years. That's what we're actually solving for. But it's like, and sometimes the answer is yes, by the way. But
Technology is great for convenience and security and automation, but yeah, it's not creating solutions that couldn't be solved other ways for the most part.
nor should it.
So, scalability a little bit maybe, but
Yeah, but nor should it. If there's no market for it to do reports on paper, why write an app for it? Like, I mean, you don't write TurboTax out of the gate before there is tax forms. People use them for so freaking long. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I should use the tech to make it more efficient. But if nobody filed taxes, TurboTax wouldn't have a purpose, right?
So crystal ball time.
Yes.
We're looking ahead, YellowBird's future, business to business software applications, future, 2 years, 5 years down the road. Give us a glimpse. What's that look like?
We are focused as an organization on what we call wisdom enabled AI. And so wisdom enabled AI. So it's basically taking the human being's secret sauce, all the tribal knowledge, all your background, all your experience, and making it applicable to the given scenario. And so rather than having one person with one knowledge set, you have an army of people who have given you things to help guide you in a direction. That is not just a EHS, environmental health and safety thing. I'm passionate personally about disability empowerment, one thing that many people know or don't know about me is I was actually born with one hand. And so, and I'm an avid golfer and I am an athlete, and I've been very fortunate to have accomplished some things in my life. And so I'm not afraid to talk about how hard things are and how adaptation is hugely important. And I get great pride in talking about this subject. Well, one of the things that I'm passionate about, you talking about YellowBird 3 years from now, we're going to be doing things like helping caregivers find access to the right professional to help their child who is maybe nonverbal, or somebody who has needs somebody to help them with their cancer treatments, who the person coming there has an expertise to the nth degree with that kind of cancer and has been through that journey. It's not, oh, they're a nurse, they're fine. There's still too much vague application of, kind of like going, hey, I need a programmer. Okay, we'll send you one. It's like, whoa, hold on. So what are we building? Right? Like, can we at least narrow it down? Do you want a front end? Do you want a back end? Do you want a database? Do you want to, what are we doing here? Right. And in many industries where subject matter experts are important, the nuance matters. And so what we're really building is, how do we help that nuance become actionable in a meaningful way? And that's the future of YellowBird. And I don't know what industry it's in, but I'm actually not trying to go large language. I'm actually trying to go micro languages, micro solutions. And it's a very different stance, not always easily explained to non-technical people, but people who are technical usually nod their heads because they get how powerful that actually is. More data is not always better. It's right data.
Yeah, you want to have the right, exactly. You want to have the right data. My dad was working in a kind of nursing profession, in a home health aide for a long time, and he worked for a company that was constantly. He basically ended up with the highest end clients that this organization worked with, because he was one of the few people. It's like, this client has a trach tube, this client needs Hoyer transfers or whatever that is, and it's like, well, yeah, you have 1,000 people on staff who can't do that stuff, and it's not good or bad for them, but they're not a good fit for that client. And so, but I think the world needs this. This is amazing.
But that's a perfect example. So take that example. They have all kinds of these people. The client needs this specifically, and they don't have the person that can do that. Now take that into the world I'm living right now. Everybody goes, oh, I already have safety people. Great. But you need to do a crane training for an overhead crane for somebody. And your people are not, it's these outlying applications, and there's millions of them. And so we're not trying to displace anybody. And I think that would be the message for when people get freaked out about AI. It's not, I personally believe it's going to help the real value be found. And for me, that's what's important. Like, yeah, there's going to be some positions that are relatively low value that you're going to need to retrain people on. But the high value positions, it's just going to help optimize them better. It's going to actually probably help drive people into more high end roles and income. But it's my theory. I could be wrong. I mean, I really bet almost everything on it, so I hope I'm not. But
Well, conviction for you. Yeah, I don't think that technology takes away our problems. I think technology helps us have better problems. And yeah, I think that you're talking about example of that. Like, we're going to lose some. Our workforce is going to look a little bit different after we're finished, really utilizing some of the stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but hopefully those are better positions that are higher paid, that can support more people, because of all this extra productivity we're getting from machine cycles. We can pay those people a little bit more, or something like that. I mean, yeah.
Well, it's always been the same thing. I mean, we can go down this rabbit hole, but all the people who were building the buckets and carriages thought they were going to be out of the workforce. But the reality is that the Henry Fords of the world needed people assembling on the assembly line. So they had to get reskilled, but now they went from hammering in nails to, connecting bolts. I don't want to be dismissive, but it's not new. Every single technology, you either resist it and you just stay in it as long as you can, and then you get into something new, or you lean forward and you lean into it early and maybe get ahead of the curve. But that's also a mindset. I'm not upset with people who find it to be fearful. There are a lot of fearful things associated with it. And you can write a really negative story if you want. Like anybody could.
I'm intensely fearful about technology. I'm intensely fearful about AI and monitoring, but that doesn't mean I pretend it's not happening or it doesn't exist. It's about how do we look forward into solutions? How do we look forward into where the ball is going to be to make the solutions for the problems that aren't happening yet?
Great point. As I look at cybersecurity as a perfect example, cybersecurity was not a thing when I got into technology. 1991. Yeah, there were some people that were in medical and in banking. That was pretty much it. They were the ones, and the government, they were the ones that were worried. Everybody else, nobody had any cybersecurity concerns. And then McAfee came out to, if you do, just put this on your local computer and you're fine. And now it's the biggest industry in tech by far. I mean, I think it's going to create new industries out of the fear of the industry.
Oh, certainly.
Well, another example of how kind of big advancements in technology have changed the landscape is that, we used to be that cybersecurity was all about tech attacks, and now cybersecurity is all about training and helping your people not bypass systems and regulations. And there's probably an analog to be drawn as we move into this new world where computers are being more helpful in more context.
Michael, it has been an absolute pleasure. It's nice to get to chat with you again, and more specifically in what it is that you're doing, how you've gotten there, what the future looks like. And I think that that's a fantastic path forward. And I really applaud your mindset and desire to push into these spaces that really need the help. So thank you very much for joining us today. Once again, Michael Zalle is founder and CEO of YellowBird. Thank you very much. And as always, Justin, thanks so much for being partner in crime in this. And we'll be seeing you all next time on SaaS That App. Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.